Good morning, class. I thought I'd give a weekly lecture over how to do the annotated bib assignments. This assignment really deals with the 6 scholarly sources you plan on using in your research paper. So it's very imperative that you pick the best 6 sources out of each one of these categories, right? If you've been reading some of my emails and looking at some of my previous weekly lectures, I give an overview a little bit about the actual annotated bib assignment. Now, this is not going to make a lot of sense unless, one, you already have a research paper topic chosen from that list that's on the essay 5 list. And two, you really have to submit your proposal, which is due this Sunday. The proposal really, and we talked about that in a previous video, there's 4 questions, and as you tell on this particular assignment, there's 4 questions with the annotated bib. Please keep in mind that the 2 assignments are different as it relates to the 4 questions, meaning the 4 questions on the proposal really deal with the proposal aspect of your research paper, and the 4 questions on the annotated bib sheet really deals with your 6 sources. So I broke this assignment up because usually in my in-person classes, I usually have all 6 of them sort of due. It's a bigger assignment. It's basically about 3 to 4 pages. But here, because it's online, the online environment is fast-paced. I thought about making it, one big assignment due, and I'm like, well, that's going to be a good bit of time between the proposal and when this thing is due. So that's why I sort of broke it up. That's why there's going to be something due, right? The first set that deals with your 2 scholarly web sources or web articles and sites are due on the 27th of March. The second set of annotated bibs, your journal articles, are due on April 3rd. uh, which is a Sunday. Then we go off for spring break for about a week. And then when we return, basically on Monday, April 11th, your final two scholarly book sources are due. Now you can work ahead with these. You don't have to necessarily wait until particular due dates. If you can work ahead, I would. Just because after you submit the annotated bib, then you have to actually draft and finalize your research paper. So what I would suggest is that as you are reading each one of these sources in the sets, right, your two web sources, your two journal articles, and your two book sources, that you are taking your own notes, that you're highlighting passages, highlighting potential quotations that you want to use to back up your thesis statement and major points throughout your research paper, because that's the key. As you can tell, the key title here, research paper, you need to include, that's the whole reason why we're doing the annotated bibs over the next 3 or 4 weeks, is to give you enough time to not only read your sources thoroughly, take your own notes on them, but also find particular evidence, support, quotations that you want to use or paraphrase or summarize. And we will talk a little bit more about how to do the parenthetical and in-text citation via MLA, how to create a really easy works cited page, which you, if you do your annotated bib, you can turn your annotated bib into a quick works cited page within like 2 minutes, if that. This assignment, you go from the easiest assignment in this semester, which should be the proposal, to one that's a little bit more of a challenge, especially if you don't start your research sooner rather than later. This is one particular assignment you just sort of cannot procrastinate on, especially as it relates to library sources, because if you look, set 2 and set 3 all deal with either journal articles or book sources, and those are the 4 sources you're going to have to go put feet to pavement and go to the library and collect. Now, your library could be a public library if they have a good collection of sources, journal articles, and book sources on your topic. It could be a college library, which that might be the better source or a better place to go because we are a college. Or if you're a dual enrollment student, you might find some stuff in your high school library that relates to your particular topic for your research paper. The 2 scholarly web sources, you can get those, pretty much off any of your favorite web browser. You want to be careful that you're using .edu, .org, or .gov sources. They tend to be more reputable and scholarly in nature. That's not to say .com sources aren't, but you want to be careful of who's providing that information. If they don't really have a degree in that field, I probably would not consider them a reputable source. Wikipedia is not a scholarly source. I don't want to see Wikipedia as one of your annotated bib citations or on your works cited page in your research paper. If you use Wikipedia, you're going to have to pick another source. So if you have Wikipedia on there, just know instead of having 6 sources, you're going to have 7 or 8 or whatever the case may be. But Wikipedia is really not a scholarly source that you need to be using for this particular assignment or the actual research paper. I will show you how you could use certain elements of Wikipedia, mainly the reference and works cited page, to piggyback the fine scholarly sources. But you can't use the main article that whatever your topic is that somebody's written about, because the problem is it's not just one person that's basically editing and adding stuff to that particular web article. It's multiple people that go in there and edit and add, and you can't really verify what they're saying, because anybody from a 3-year-old to a 93-year-old, if they know how to type and write and think, can go on there on Wikipedia any day or night and edit and add content without it really being, so-called fact checked or, scholarly in nature. So I would just try to avoid Wikipedia at all costs. I mean, it's good to use to get sort of a general idea of your topic. But if you're thinking about, oh, I can just go to Wikipedia and get all my sources, I would not be in that frame of mind, because that's just going to set you up for failure, not only for the annotated bib, but also for the research paper. So collectively, your proposal, your annotated bib, and your research paper, if you looked at my email yesterday, is worth nearly 40% of your grade. So what does that mean? Well, 40%, think of 40% as being 40 points. If you start messing up on any one of these assignments, the proposal, the annotated bib, or the research paper, you could see your, overall semester average drop 40 points, which would basically be like 4 letter grades. For most people, if you have an A and if you drop 40 points, you'll probably be at a D. Anybody that's B or lower would be at an F if you drop 40 points. This is one of those assignments, collectively all three, that no matter how high your grade is at this point, it will fail you if you screw it up. Just like I said in the email, we offer English 1101 yearly. Generally, spring and fall, we have it for 16 weeks, both in person and online. Sometimes we have a mini mester where we may have it for 8 weeks. In the summer classes generally are 10 weeks in length. We do have a summer break. It's sort of like a spring break, but it's a summer break in the summer. I really would not want to redo a class that I could have easily done well in had I just, followed instructions, paid attention, asked questions, and drafts, because everybody, for the most part, there's still a few people in here that have really low Fs. And I would suggest at this point that you need to probably go through the process of withdrawing yourself from the course, because, if you're sitting at a 1, which I did have somebody at a 1, I had some people in the 20s, a couple people maybe in the 30s or 40s. It's going to be hard pressed with the remaining 7 assignments to pull that grade up just to a C. In a lot of ways, if you're sitting at a 26, you would be really wasting your own time trying to pull that grade up to a 7. It probably just is not going to happen at this point, meaning that we have, 7 weeks or less left in the semester, and we just don't have enough assignments to pull your grade up, because for each 0 that you make, you have to at least make 5 100s for each one of the zeros. So if you already have 3 zeros in the grade book, you have to make 15 100s just to sort of pull that up to about a 68, 69, which that's still a high D range. We don't have 15 assignments left. We only have 7. So again, if you're really failing the course, and what I mean by really failing, like 50% or lower, and you haven't went through the process of withdrawing from the class, I would probably do that now, just so that you're not having issues as it relates to financial aid and that type of stuff in the summer and the fall, or whenever you plan on coming back. Now, keep in mind, whether you withdraw or fail this class or whatever the case may be, this is really one of those classes that's a prerequisite for any college you go to, whether it's a private college, whether it's Georgia Southern, whether it's out of country or out of state. Everybody has to take the English 1101 to really be able to pursue into other courses that require that you have a passing grade of C or higher for English 1101 or for your program of study. So this is going to hold you back graduation wise if you don't make a C or higher, as it relates to your final grade in this class. So just keep that in mind, whether you transfer or whether you don't. If you make a D or lower, you're going to have to repeat it at some point. And generally, when you have to repeat a class or retake a class, it just sets you back at least 4 months, or 16 weeks from graduation. So if you have to take 2 classes, I mean, you can kind of do the math there. That's 30 weeks. That's nearly 8 months. So you're looking at, if you failed 2 classes or you had to withdraw from 2 classes, unless you're planning on taking those same 2 classes again in the same semester, you're looking at, now your graduation is set back nearly 8 months to a year. So just be careful about having to withdraw or fail from classes. Besides the financial impact it's going to have on you as it relates to the Hope and the Pell and whatever else you got going on, it will set you back a little bit more too. If you have your graduation set for, let's say 2024, if you failed a couple classes, well, now your graduation date could be 2025 or 2026. So there are some consequences about, failing courses, obviously, besides just getting the F and having to retake. Sometimes folks get into a semester and realize they have too much on the plate. There's a lot going on outside of school, work, family, and there's no shame about having to withdraw from a class. You just want to make sure that you're not making a habit of doing it every semester. Otherwise, your 2 or 3 year plan is going to be a 15-year plan before you can get that 2-year degree. And it's just going to prolong and delay stuff. So again, if you're one of the folks that is not doing too well, you can request to be withdrawn by sending me an email and telling me, hey, you want to withdraw from the class if you're not a dual enrollment student. If you're a high school student or a dual enrollment student, you have to go through the protocol of getting in touch with your Coastal Pines high school coordinator and working out the details there. Otherwise, you sort of have that, the way our attendance policy is, if you don't go through the process of withdrawing yourself, then you're really just sort of setting yourself up to fail. And there's nothing I can do at that point because you never requested it. You never went to the register or to your high school coordinator to start the paperwork. So, you just want to be careful of that you're actually talking to the proper people to get yourself withdrawn from not only this class, but for any class. I hate to see you go, but I understand that sometimes life does rear its ugly head at times that we really didn't want it to. But sometimes it's better to start over fresh when we're a little bit more focused and we can, push forward that way. Anyway, let me talk to you a little bit about the annotated bibs. If you looked at this particular handout, which is online, it's been up there for a little bit, you notice, and I sent this stuff in an email too about the due dates. The first set, which deals with your 2 scholarly web sources, is due on Sunday, the 27th of March, which, as you know, the proposal is due this Sunday. So the following Sunday, your first 2 annotated bib citations are due. The following week, which is basically going to lead us into spring break, your 2 scholarly journal articles are due on April 3rd. And then we have basically April 4th through the 10th off because of our spring break. We come back on the 11th, and our final, or set 3, the 2 scholarly book sources, are due on Monday, April 11th. These are all due by Blackboard Dropbox by 11:59. Of course, like I said, you can work ahead. I probably would if you have time and you can work ahead, I would. You can send me drafts at any point while you're working on these. I think as we go through the process here, you would see after doing the first 2 that the last 4 are sort of similar. The only difference is you're dealing with 4 different sources, and your answers to these 4 questions are going to be a little bit different because you're reading 4 different sources. You should expect, and I should expect, that your answers to those 4 questions are going to be different. You can kind of read through this. We talked a little bit about what an annotated bib was in my last video lecture when I gave you an overview. But these were the 4 questions, right? After you read each one of your 6 sources, and again, these questions are set up where you're going to have to be able to thoroughly read your sources to be able to answer these, meaning you can't really give me a lot of BS answers here without me, I can look at number 1 and say, yeah, this person didn't really read the source. Or I can look at number 3 and say, yeah, this person really just sort of skimmed through this based on their answers. So you're really going to have to thoroughly read through your sources. So this is where, 50% of this research, besides going out and collecting and finding and getting the good sources, the 6 good sources that will really help you write your paper, you're going to have to do a good bit of outside reading because everybody's going to have a different topic and pick different sources. So this really is going to be up to you as it relates to going out and getting the research and doing the reading and taking your own notes on your sources and all that stuff. So I would, especially if you're a procrastinator or time management is not something that's a strong suit for you, or you just got a lot going on, you're going to need to restructure the way that you sort of do these assignments, because you're going to have time to go out and get the research. You're going to have time to actually read the research, take your notes, highlight the passages or the sentences or words that you might want to use as quotations or paraphrases in your actual research paper. And then you're going to have time to actually answer these questions and do these 3 sets of the annotated bibs, each week leading up until the final one, which was due again on April 11th. So this can be a time-consuming assignment if you allow it. It doesn't have to be. If you do a little bit each day, it won't seem like everything is sort of caving in on you. If you wait to each Sunday or each weekend or sort of to do these, then it's really going to put a lot of extra stress on you, on your grade, on your mentality, on your health that you really didn't need to do to yourself. I will say, starting with the proposal, if you sort of don't do these things well in a timely manner, if your grade starts to slip, starting this Sunday, the next Sunday, to the following Sunday, you're going to see your grade overall drop quickly, and it's not going to be a good feeling, because again, this is nearly 40% collectively of your overall semester grade. So the proposal, like I said, that's due on Sunday, should be a really easy way. If you follow the instructions I put up there, if you look at that model and the guidance that I put in the margins, the proposal should be a really easy A for everybody. Now, I know, is everybody going to probably get an A? Probably not, because I'm going to have some folks that just did not read the instructions, did not look at the model. They're going to send something, whatever in, because they didn't get smart thinking or me to look at their work. And when they do that, they're not going to get the A. But if you look at what I have written and review the model and follow the instructions and look at the questions and stuff, and base your answers and your paragraphs for your proposal based on your answers to those questions in that particular assignment, and you start sending me and Smart Thinking drafts, then you should see that your grade will improve on it over time. I think that's the issue with the first 4 essays. Some of y'all were sending me drafts to me, and I guess Smart Thinking, because the grades reflect that. Generally, you get the highest grade on the assignments, and your grade is pretty strong in the course. There's been a handful of you that I could tell that, one, never has sent me a draft at all. So if you're not sending me drafts, you're probably not sending Smart Thinking drafts. And it seems like some of the writing, some of the essays have just been cranked out, maybe 3 or 4 hours before they were due. So if you want to keep that same work ethic and habit, I can tell you your grade's going to start dropping this Sunday, and it's going to continue to drop until the 28th of April, when the actual research paper is due. And by that time, who knows where your grade's going to be? It could be, your B could be a C, your C could be a D, it could be, your A could be an F at that point. So again, I would work smarter, not harder. I would send stuff. If you haven't been using Smart Thinking, now I'd start using Smart Thinking because it's free. I would start sending me drafts just to keep your grade increasing rather than decreasing over the next 7 weeks. So these are the 4 questions, right? What are the main argument points, topics covered in your particular source? Is the particular source, as it relates to its information about your topic, objective or biased? Is the information reliable? Remember, objective is really more or less, it means, is the information that you're reading, is the author of that article, website, or book giving neutral? Are they basically sort of laying out the facts and having the audience sort of decide, or are they really biased toward one particular aspect of their topic? If you look at the guided library orientation video, Caroline, one of our librarians at the Jessup campus, will go over a lot of this stuff about which sources are more reliable and biased than others and that type of stuff. So you probably really want to watch that video. It's about 14 or 15 minutes. It goes through an orientation of our particular library at the colleges. It shows how to check out books and to find journal articles, and it's going to be really helpful as it relates to the annotated bib. So I would probably watch that before I really got started on any of the annotated bibs. Because otherwise, if you don't know what you're looking for, going to a Galileo or a database at the library and you don't really have a clue of what you're doing, the librarians probably won't be able to help you as much because you don't know where you're going, you don't know what you're doing. And even if you did have sort of a slight hint of, hey, I want to, look up stuff about, let's say, terrorism as your topic. And if you put that in Galileo, you're going to get, pages of information about terrorism because it's too broad. You're going to have to narrow that search down, because otherwise you're not going to be able to read, 1,500 pages or hits just about terrorism. You just don't have the time. So I would definitely look at the library orientation video, and then if you have questions, visit your local librarian to see if they can help you. That they're there to help you. But if you don't have a topic in mind, you don't have a direction, it's going to be hard for them to give you any guidance if you don't know where you want to go with it. Question 3. How can you use a particular source in your research paper? How is the particular source helpful to you? And then, of course, our last question is, how has the particular source changed how you think about your topic? So you're going to, after you read each one of your 6 sources, you're going to ask these same 4 questions per source, and you're going to answer each one of these 4 questions based on your reading of your sources. So if you look, I did give you a model that a student did. I sort of changed up the date a little bit, but this is a quality model. If you look in my margins, I give you some guidance about how they went about doing this. This is a really good, like I said, a student last summer did this for the class and made an A on it. So even though the topics probably were a little bit different, you're not going to have the same topics, probably not use the same sources. The setup and the format is what you need to do. The only thing that's sort of missing here is, and the reason why, is the last name and the page number, but it's because I basically put this assignment on this assignment sheet, and that's why the page numbers or the last name and stuff is not there. But I will show you how you can go back and sort of do each set. There's a format or a template that I use that has been pretty successful for students in the past. I believe this particular student last summer used it, and of course he was sending me drafts as well throughout the course of his writing this, and he was also sending stuff to Smart Thinking. So again, there's a format, there's a structure that you need to follow. You follow that structure throughout all 6, and you should be good. Really, what you want to pay close attention to at that point is your citations, because if you look right above each paragraph, we do have a citation. I'll show you how about going about doing that, and make sure that your grammar and your language and your punctuation is good in your paragraphs, and that you're actually really thinking and answering these questions truthfully as they're based on your sources. Now, if you look, this person had a lot to say, so his paragraphs are a little bit meatier and a little bit longer. Yours don't necessarily have to be as long. I would say, because there's 4 questions, if you do a, sentence answer per question, right? 2 sentences at the most, 1 sentence at the least, you're going to have anywhere from a 4 to 8 sentence paragraph for each one of your source annotations. So ultimately you're going to have 6 of these, because based on your 6 sources. So let's sort of look at my little template here. And this is what this is on another student that basically had an 8-week course with me earlier this semester. They did their research paper on pros and cons of carbohydrates. This is the set 1, which would be for you due. Like I said, I sort of just changed the date, the 27th. This is sort of what your title probably needs to resemble. You need to have Annotated Bib set 1. You need to have a tentative title, or if you know what the title of your research paper is, you need to have that underneath. And then I would put what you're doing in your particular set, which in this case, the first set is 2 scholarly web sources. You're still going to have the header the way it needs to be, last name and page number. Some of y'all are forgetting the last name and page number. Some of y'all are forgetting your header. Some of you are forgetting your title. Some of you are forgetting all 3. And that's why some of your essay grades haven't been the greatest, because you're not really following the MLA format, which we talked about back in week 1 and week 2. All right, so this is what I did. And this is what I would suggest, right? This is how I sort of suggest these to students in the past. I would take each one of those 4 questions that's on the Annotated Bib Assignment sheet. This sheet, right? Not the proposal questions, the Annotated Bib questions. I would copy and paste. I would open up a document. I would copy and paste each one of these 4 questions and kind of give myself some space, because if you look here, this is my second citation, this is my first citation, and then I give myself space and I put this word ANS, which is, abbreviation for answer, for each one of these particular questions. So after I read this particular source by Mark Greger and Michael Sesson, I then can go in and answer these questions. And once I answer these questions, I'm going to leave it like this for now, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to take my answers and make my paragraph. Same thing with my second source. I have my citation up front, which that's where I need it. I have those same 4 questions. However, my answers are different because I'm reading a different source. So how do you get the citation? Well, there's a couple ways you can do. One, and I'm going to show you this here, is let me get another browser open or window. You could type in Google MLA 9 works cited generator. And when you do that, you're going to have a lot of different ones that pop up. Really, any one of these is good to use. I've used EasyBib usually throughout my whole entire college career, even when I was a student. You might be used to that. For the purpose of today, I'm looking at Graffiti here because it has the new MLA 9, which is what you want. I'm going to click on that. And as you tell, it has sort of the 3 things that you're looking for: your book, your website, your journal article, video. You can click here for all types. If you hit book, right, if you know the title, the author, the DOI or ISBN, that could be helpful. Make it really easy. If not, you're going to have to sort of fill this stuff out. So what I'm going to do, just to show you how to work this, is I'm going to put up a website, because that's basically, and we got this going. So let me see here. So we got a website. And I'll make sure that my citation style is in MLA 9, because that's what we want. That's our new edition. So I'm going to find a website or a web article, let's say. I'm just going to take something off random. I'm going to go to, let's say, CNN, right? Because it's a news organization, we would hope that some of the material in here would be credible, depending on which side of the political aisle you're on. But for our cases, I'm not really worried about that now, because I'm just wanting to show you how to use this thing to help you with your citations. So I found a particular article, and I'm going to copy and paste the website here. Now, if you have the web link and you can do that, it will sort of, if it's a legit deal, meaning if it's online, they can generally find it. It will fill all this stuff out for you. If it's something that, like a PDF file or something, they may not be able to do as easily. So you're going to have to go in here and manually type that stuff in. But if you go ahead and hit fill in, if you look, it pretty much filled stuff in. You're going to have to be careful. You want to capitalize, make sure the title is capitalized. So you want to not necessarily capitalize each word. There's certain words that don't need to be capitalized, but you want to make sure that the capitalization of your titles is there, because it's only a computer program. You're going to have to remember what words are capitalized in a particular title of a work to make sure that you're doing it right. So it looks like that is good. The thing is, too, when I look at this actual CNN article, there is 2 authors that they did not copy over really well. So you may have to go back and put that in there manually. I'm just going to copy and paste first and last name. So you still may have to do a little bit of work because this thing is not necessarily 100% perfect. And then I'm going to have to type this one in because it's wanting to give me a hyperlink for it. So I'm putting in our authors. I made sure the title was capitalized. It is CNN. And also, it didn't do the date published, so I'm going to have to do that. This was recent, so it's 2022 is the year. The month is March, and then our date is 16. And they have a web link, and from there, we're just going to we're pretty much done. So we're going to go ahead and hit add reference. And if you look, here it is. It actually shows you how to do the in-text citation for a web article if you want to, quote something from this particular source, which you will eventually when it comes to your research paper. So what you could do, there's a couple things that you can do. You can copy it, right? And then you can go back to your document and paste that above, like I did here, which will be, because the citation needs to come before your paragraphs. And momentarily, I'm going to show you how you can turn your answers into those 4 to 8 sentence paragraphs. You can download it, which I think they give you a chance to download it. Maybe not on this particular one. Some of them do. They give you a chance to, here it is, export it. You can export it to Word, but it's asking you to be a premium member, but you don't have to do that if you use some of these other ones like EasyBib. Again, there's a couple of other ones out there that might be a little bit student user friendly. This is not bad, but when it's asking you to be a premium member, just note that you don't have to go out and buy anything to be able to do these sets for the annotated bib. So going back to set 1, I would just copy and paste that citation in here, and that's basically what Sam did. So how do you get that paragraph? Okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. We got a lot of stuff here. I'm going to get rid of this word citation. I'm leaving my citation as it is right now. We're going to have to do something to it because with any type of citations, you never indent the first line. You just leave it left align. Now, if you spill over, which here we do, we go to lines 2, 3, 4, 5. If you spill over, you have to highlight those and do a hanging indent. So you need to go up to where it says paragraph, hit that little arrow, go to special, and as you can tell, it already has on hanging. And here, because I moved it out, probably ain't going to do it. You can either do Control-T or you can tab it. And here, this is how it's going to look. And the reason why it's looking so funky at the moment is because of this long web link. So if you have a long web link, it's going to do that. So don't get, don't get freaked out about that. But this is what it should look like. Again, you're not going to indent this first line. But if you go over the first line, each additional line after, you need to use Control-T You can try to highlight and tab. Sometimes that will help, or you need to actually go to the paragraph and do the hanging indent feature. All right, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to get rid of this highlighting part because now I'm done with that particular section. Now you want to get your paragraphs. So how do you do that? Well, if you answered in order, if you had your questions in order, 1, 2, 3, and 4, your answers are already in order. Answer 1, answer 2, so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of my questions, and I'm just going to leave my answers. So if you notice, I'm just leaving my highlighted parts. And since I'm doing this in order, everything's going to be in order. I have my 4 answers. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to sort of backspace everything, left align it at first. I'm going to get rid of my answer abbreviation, just keeping my answers as they are. And notice, again, I'm in order. This is my answer to question 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back question 4, or my answer to question 4, into question 3. And then I'm going to do the same thing with 3 and 4. I'm going to back it back into 2. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to back 2, 3, and 4 into 1. I'm going to go through and make sure that my grammar and everything is good. You can kind of take your time with that, but just to show you what I'm trying to get at is you're using your answers to create your 4 to 8 sentence paragraphs. Then I'm going to just tab, because we got to tab the paragraphs. Well, I shouldn't be doing that. What's going on? There we go. So I'm going to tab, and then I'm going to make sure everything is double spaced, which for the most part it is up top. So I'm going to make double. I'll click on that, not to add spaces, too many spaces. So when we back out and I get rid of the highlighted part, there's my paragraph. There's my citation. Now, the other thing that you want to kind of keep in mind, because you're going to have 2 of these, right? You're going to have set 1's got the 2 scholarly web sources, set 2, 2 scholarly journal articles, set 3, 2 scholarly books. You want to make sure that your citations all come in order alphabetically by author's last name. So since G is here, K, right, alphabetically, know your ABCs, G comes before K. Now, if you had K first and G second, you'd have to sort of swap those because they have to be alphabetical order by author's last name. If I had something that was, let's say the author that I used last name was Adams, then Adams would come before Gregor here. So just make sure that you remember your ABCs. Citation 2 is the same issue. I'm just going to sort of back this up. As you know, I went to EasyBib, or I went to one of those citation makers online. Here's my citation. I'm going to get rid of this citation 2. Notice I have my first line. I'm going to go ahead and it's left a line here. I'm going to go ahead and highlight these up, and I'm going to do Control T. There, I have a hanging indent because I go lines 2 and 3. I'm done with that, so I'm going to highlight that and get rid of the highlighter feature. From there, I'm going to get rid of my questions again. So you're sort of repeating the same process with each one of these that you do. You're going to have these same 4 questions. You're going to have 6 different sources. Your answers are going to be different. Your citations are going to be different. But as you can tell, again, if you go in order, it should be fairly simple to get to create these sets. So I'm just getting rid of this, getting rid of this, getting rid of this. Come on. And then I'm just backing things into each other, as long as they stay in order. Making sure some of the grammar, some of the spacing. Sometimes when you do that, you have spacing issues. You want to make sure. And then I'm going to space this one down just so you can see. I'm going to cover up this white space. I'm going to indent here, and then I'm going to double space my paragraph, and then I'm going to get rid of the highlighted portion. And then I'm going to back up. I'm going to sort of get this back in there. As you can tell, it sort of screwed that up for me, so I had to do Control T again. But if you look, if I backed up, this is how it looks. You have your first website here. You have your second website here. Citations come first before each one of your paragraphs. Make sure, again, they're alphabetical order by author's last name. G comes before K, not K comes before G. Make sure that everything has your header. You have your proper titles for each one of the sets. You have your last name and page number, top right-hand corner of both pages. And you take your answers to your 4 questions and you make your paragraph, right? Some paragraphs will be a little lengthier than others. You want to kind of keep it, like I said, between 4 and 8. 3-sentence paragraphs are not going to work. 12-sentence paragraphs is giving me too much that you probably want to save and actually use some of that information when you actually draft and finalize the research paper, because you don't want to burn yourself out writing throughout this process. So this would be done. The only thing I would do at this point, I would probably personally ask the student to go through, try to proofread and edit the work first, send this draft to Smart Thinking, wait for Smart Thinking to send it back, correct whatever Smart Thinking has to say, and then send me that new draft. And then I would send you the, my corrections or my feedback so you can correct. And then from there, we will see, because as you can tell, 1 to 2 pages is generally what this assignment is going to be for each one of your sets. You may not have to do as many drafts if you send me and Smart Thinking 1 each. So it could be that you're only looking at maybe 1 or 2 additional drafts after that. You just want to make sure that your citation is correct and that your paragraphs are correct, because you don't want to lose nearly 9 points just for your citation, because that's basically what this stuff is worth. If you looked at some of my previous emails, the citations for each one of these are worth 8.333 points a piece, and the paragraphs are worth about 8.333 points a piece. So what I want to do with these is that you're going to get graded initially on each set, but because there's 3 sets, I'm going to add up each one of your grades, take the average, divide that by 3, and whatever number that comes up with, that's your final grade collectively for this annotated bib. So early on, you're going to see your grade sort of do that. It's going to go up and down depending on what you make on these. If you start off strong with the proposal and with the first set of the annotated bib, your grades should start to really go up. If you start becoming kind of wavery with them, it's going to do the roller coaster with your grade. Your grade's not going to sort of stable out again until after April 11th. So just be mindful of that. Your grade's either going to look really high at some point, or it's going to start looking really sort of low at some point, depending on how you do on these next 4 assignments, right? The proposal and the 3 sets of the annotated bib. Now, when it comes to the one that's due on the 3rd, you would do the same thing, right? Here it is. I have my header, page number, last name. I have Annotated Bibliography set 2, because now we're doing the second set. Now it's 2 scholarly journal articles. I have my tentative research paper title. I have my 3rd source here. I have my 4th source here. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm asking these same 4 questions of these sources. I have my citation. I use my citation generators from online. So again, I'm getting rid of this. I'm getting rid of these. Basically keeping my answers. Again, this is source 3. Go ahead and get this sort of set up for me. So, I mean, again, you can work ahead on these, and it may be easier that you did, because once you figure out the little pattern here, Again, if you're sending me in Smart Thinking drafts and you're doing it early enough that we can actually give you a decent amount of feedback, you may not have to do as much revising as you think you will, especially if you have Smart Thinking and me basically looking at your work. You may have to do 1 or 2 additional, just nitty gritty stuff. If you're starting to proofread your work and edit a little bit more now, which you should, that might cut up a lot of time. So what I'm going to do again, I'm getting rid of my abbreviation to the word answer. I'm still in order, backing things up. And again, if you use sort of this template that I did, it will probably make a lot of things easier once you start getting your sources and having to start writing some of these. Check my spacing here. Again, you'd go back and check the grammar. I'm going to go ahead and tab. And you can look, sometimes that screws things up. So I might have to do my paragraph. I'm going to go ahead and make sure everything is double spaced, which it is. Back this up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and get this highlight off. Back this up a little bit more, get this off. Now, if you noticed, like I said on the first one, my last name here starts with an L and I have a D. Well, that's not alphabetical order. So I'm going to have to move these around because I'm not following the instructions of what MLA wants bibliographies to be. So what I want to do is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to get rid of it, make my D author first, and then I'm just going to come underneath and paste my L. That's alphabetical order by author's last name. Afterwards, I would go through and proofread and make sure and edit on my own at first, and then I would send a copy to Smart Thinking, and then after I get Smart Thinking back, I would send it to me, the instructor, and then we would go from there. So as you can tell, that's how you would do your 2 scholarly journal sources. If you look, it's about the same length, give or take. It's about 1 page. So again, if you're doing these, one set at a time, you're going to have a 1 to 2 page document. So it shouldn't be that, it's not like you're writing forever here. And that one would be done. And then you would go for the last one, which is your 2 book sources. Again, I have the same sort of setup as it relates to the header. I have my tentative title, I have set 3, I have 2 scholarly book sources, I have the due date from when it's due to sort of kind of keep me in mind of when this thing is due, which is going to be on the 11th of April. I have my source for citation 5, source and citation 6, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. I'm going to start from the bottom here. And again, same 4 questions, just different answers because I'm using 2 additional different sources. These are my book sources. Keep everything in order, and your paragraphs will be in order as well as it relates to your sentences here, how to construct them. Now, if you do something different, I can't guarantee that yours is going to look like this. And with that in mind, I can't guarantee what your overall grade would be, because if you sort of go rogue and kind of do this not knowing what you're really doing, again, you're going to start seeing your grade drop every week starting this Sunday. If you're sort of just saying, well, I'm just going to do it my way or the highway, and you can go with that philosophy if you want, but if you cherish your grade and your GPA, I probably wouldn't, I wouldn't do stuff that's going to really wreck that on you the next 7 weeks. Otherwise, we will be seeing you again in the summer or next fall or wherever the case may be, which I don't think you want that either. So I'm going to get rid of the highlight. I have that one done. I'm going to do the same thing here. Get rid of my questions. Keep my answers. Make sure they're sort of in order. They are. And really, I found this as being one of the easier methods. I mean, you may come up with your own method that works easier, that accomplish the same thing. And if you do, share it with us. Because if you got something that's easier than what I'm showing you here, I'm always a proponent to work smarter, not harder. And if it achieves the same method that I want for you to have as it relates to the directions of the assignment, then I don't mind you showing me what you did if it's easier, because then I can always help other people with it. So double space, I'm gonna get this, because that's the thing too. I mean, education really, it's a learning process. We should be able to learn from each other. If you find something, a better method, like I said, that basically does the same thing here, I'm all the ears. Show me, if that's helpful. So I'm going to get rid of my highlight here. Looks like that, and I'm going to go ahead and do the Control T. And if you look, M, Mingler, Spectre. So in this case, I actually lucked out and had everything in alphabetical order, so I don't have to go back. So I'm going to space this up, and again, I'm going to have to do the whole Control T, because that sort of did what it did. But if you look, I'm going to zoom out again, going on to the second page, not really long or lengthy. I would, like I said with the previous two sets, proofread it, edit yourself, send it to Smart Thinking, wait for them to give you some feedback, then send it to me, wait for my feedback, and then you may not need to do too much more after that. It may be ready to go. So that's how you would do all three sets. Again, if it was a larger assignment, it would be like in one long document. It'd be about 3 or 4 pages. And I think that would, for some folks, that's kind of daunting. I've done it both ways. It'll look like more like this example that I gave you in the assignment sheet. Notice how Paul, his goes nearly about 3 or 4 pages. That's how yours would be if I decided to do it that way. But I think the sets would work better, because you're just working 2 sources at a time. Less likely to do a whole heck of a lot of mistakes, especially if you're sending drafts to me in Smart Thinking. So even though there's something due pretty much here on out every week, just like it has been in the past, I think this would be a little bit more of a manageable project. Now, if we did it in class, at this class, because I do have another English class that I'm going to see, I may do them like a whole collective and just have it where we come in, each time we come in, we work on these a little bit. Because there's really there's pros and cons in having one larger annotated bib or doing it in sections like I am doing it here. I think you would get the feedback a little sooner. Because if you're, let's say the first set here, you didn't do so well, you didn't send any drafts, or whatever the case may be, you may take a hit in your grade. But if you learn from those mistakes, you'll be able to do set 2 and set 3 really well, because as you can tell, it's the same format. The format's not changing. The setup's not changing. It's just your sources are going to change from each one of these sets, because you're dealing with 2 different sources, 2 different types of sources, and your answers to those 4 questions are going to change, because again, you're reading 6 different sources. So you're using the same 4 questions, you're using sort of the same setup and organization. You just want to make sure that your citation is in order, author's last name, it's in the correct format, MLA, and your paragraphs are not riddled with a bunch of grammatical and errors, and that you're actually answering those 4 questions. Because again, those 4 questions are basically like worth 25 points a piece if you want to get down to it. So you want to make sure that your paragraphs really answer those questions. And again, the only way that you're going to be able to do that is by really thoroughly reading your sources. So you can't sort of, like I said earlier, you can't BS me with these answers. And even if you do and sort of get a decent grade, you're sort of just setting yourself up for even more failure, because the whole purpose of the annotated bib is saying, hey, these are the 6 best sources I have found over the last 4 or 5 weeks. These are the 6 sources I plan on quoting, I plan on paraphrasing, I plan on using throughout my 6-page paper. And if you just sort of BS the assignment to sort of get a decent grade, and you get to the point where after the 11th of April, now you got, basically 2 or 3 weeks to actually sit down and draft and finalize this research paper, but you just pick 6, bogus sources out of the blue that doesn't really have any major impact on your thesis statement or your topic, then you're going to have to go back out and find 6 more in a short amount of time. So you're just basically wasting your time and shooting yourself in the foot. So that's why I say the whole reason why we do the proposal sort of gives the green light for you to go out and do the research, right? You've done a little bit of thinking, you have a topic in mind, this is where you plan on going with it or what you want to do. Then you take the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks, if you want to count the spring break, collecting and reading the research, doing the annotated bibs. And then when we come back, because when we come back on the 11th, the paper is going to be due on the 28th. So you're basically going to have, 3 weeks from the 11th to get the paper in. And then after that, we only have a couple more days, and it's the Proctor U final exam deal, which we're going to talk a little bit more about as it gets closer. We do have one final quiz left. It deals with MLA documentation. If you look at your weekly folder, there's some information about how to integrate Quotations, MLA Part 1, Part 2. I would look at those. There's some videos that go with that too on those particular web pages, because you're not only going to need to know that for your final quiz, you're going to need to know how to do that as it relates to the research paper. There's a study guide for the final quiz. I will hand out or give out the answers as it gets closer to the date for that particular quiz, which I believe is on the 17th of April, which I believe that's the due date, which is a Sunday. The final quiz, I will tell you, will cover a good bit of what's on those 3 pages. Some of the questions may be similar. Some questions may be the same. Basically, how I'm going to set that up is it's going to be 10 true, false. You just have to put T or F. If it's false, you don't necessarily have to make it true this time like you did the first 2 quizzes. But you really need to know how to be able to properly cite MLA, in-text, parenthetical, and the works cited page, especially if you're planning on going to take English 1102 at some point or American Lit, because you're going to be doing a lot more research paper type deal and quoting from short stories, poems, drama, and that type stuff. And you need to know how to do that as it relates to the MLA format. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. I mean, that's our 7 assignments in 7 weeks, basically. I still have a couple SA4s left to grade, which I plan on having those graded, I hope, by this time next week, if not sooner. So hopefully if you did really well on that, that will sort of improve the grade heading into this Sunday's proposal. The other thing is, I would just, if you have any questions, if you have any issues, like I said in the past, I can't read minds. I don't try to read minds. If you need to get help, I would get help, so you're not getting too far behind. So again, if you look, you pretty much have everything open. The only thing is when it gets closer to, Sunday or Monday, I'm just going to move. I probably at this point just move the short-term and long-term assignments over to the next week's folders. You pretty much did everything that you needed to do with the rhetoric and the grammar. So when you click here, like I was saying, there's a couple videos. Some of y'all probably watched these, week 9, 10, lecture 2, talks a little bit more about the annotated bib. Here's the guided library orientation video. This is going to be up there soon enough. If you go and look, we have a embedded librarian. at the Camden campus, Lorna Reed. If you click here, it talks about, you can ask a librarian questions, live chat. She does have a discussion board that if you have any questions related to research or resources, you can ask here, which I would reach out. She's a librarian. She works for the college. She could be a very great asset as you go through this process of research. And she also has a folder that goes through, some of y'all might have looked at some of these. They go through a lot of these different, opposing viewpoints is really good as it relates to finding stuff about your research paper. It talks a little bit more about Galileo, goes over the LibGuides, has her introduction. There's a couple other things here, how to use MLA citations, how to cite, that type deal. That's a really good, valuable information as it relates to what you're going to need to be able to do and doing over the next 7 weeks. But yeah, I mean, definitely, if you're able to work ahead, work ahead. So if you look, pretty much weeks 11 through 14, that's all we're doing is the annotated bibs. If you can start drafting your research paper during those times, I probably would. Otherwise, it's going to be a really kind of a crunch and rush time with only 3 weeks after we come back from spring break. So there might not be a whole heck of a lot of videos or lectures during this time. I may go over a little bit about MLA and that type stuff as it relates to documentation. But I think with this video, as it relates to the annotated bib, if you follow it, you can rewatch it, you know what to do. Here's the Dropbox for the proposal. It is working. I don't know what was going on with the last Dropbox, but if you click here, it gives you the same information that you've seen on essay 3 and 4 and all that stuff. The Dropbox for the annotated bibs are right here. For the first set, it's set for the first set's deadline, and then after that, you're going to submit the same or the second set in the same Dropbox as it gets time. This is what I was talking about, integrating quotations. If you click here, this is a really good, helpful guide. Your e-text may give you some information. I would read that. This is a little bit more, infographic. It has a little bit more visual. I would watch these videos. And then 2, if you want part 2, click here and watch some of these videos and look at some of the information here. This is my, in a couple of weeks, we'll probably talk a little bit about this as it gets closer to that final quiz. The quoting poetry, you can start looking at some of that, especially if you know you're going to have to take another like literature-based course. If this is the only course you need and you're not going to do like 1102 or you're going to be reading poetry and that type of stuff, you can sort of skip over that. You just sort of want to quote or watch and use and read what you need to at the time. Here's the study guide. I would try to answer as much as you can between now and I would say when we come back from spring break, because that week is probably when I'm going to give you the answers to this. And again, your final quiz is sort of going to be based on the information here. And then I did send out an email about ProctorU. I think there was a PowerPoint. There was a couple flyers or handouts. Hopefully you had a chance to look at that. And we will definitely discuss that as it gets closer to the first week of May. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. As you can tell, spring break is week 13, basically April 3rd through the 10th, basically April 4th through the 10th. What I generally suggest to my students, if you don't want to do anything for me for say over spring break, either work ahead and knock stuff out. So when you come back, you don't feel so stressed and rushed to do stuff. Or if you're not really going anywhere because of gas prices and everything else going on, then I would probably maybe take that time to work ahead. So when we do come back, if something pressing happens, like if you have another test or something in another class that you really just have to study for, then you would already have all my stuff sort of taken care of, or at least taken care of enough that you can focus your energy and mental abilities on something else. Again, we're all adults. That's up to you. But just know this is what's left. This is what we have to do. And we only have 7 assignments and we only have 7 weeks. So you can work sort of at your own pace. Just follow the deadlines. Make sure you turn stuff in, because really at this point, I can't really take I don't take a lot of makeup work or late work as it is. And a lot of reasons, it just sort of, because something is due every Sunday, basically, it just compounds things on you. It compounds things on me as it relates to the grading. And it's just really a bad precedent to set, because, you kind of really want to kind of treat this like a job to some degree, and it is. You're getting paid with education. You're getting paid with potential degree that's going to help you get better pay in your actual career. So if you miss going to work 2 weeks in a row, chances are you're not going to have a really great paycheck or a paycheck at all. And, depending on who your boss is in the corporation, you probably don't have a job anymore. So the same thing here. Instead of not getting paid or getting fired, we just give you zeros. Well, 2 zeros would basically put anybody in a D range, depending on where your grade is. 3 zeros is going to fail everybody, right? If you got 3 zeros in the course, nobody's passing, right? So just, be mindful of zeros. Be mindful of when you should turn stuff in, what your due dates are. I would rather you turn something in earlier and get a 50 on it than turn something in or not turn something in and get a 0 on it. 50, yes, still failing, but 50 is better than 0 any day of the week because it helps toward the points. A 0 is going to, drop you 20 points. 50, yes, it's going to drop you some, but it probably won't drop you 20 points. All right. I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. Happy St. Patty's Day for those that celebrate that tomorrow. Wear your green, I guess, and drink your green stuff and eat your green cakes and whatever else green that you can think of. Otherwise, email me if you need anything. Chat with the librarian if you need to get book sources or journal sources. And, just let me know what kind of assistance we can help you as it goes through this process of researching, doing the proposal, the sets of the annotated bib, and the actual research paper. All right. Have a great day.